Welcome back. This is our third class in our Mindfulness Instructor for Children training. We're going to go ahead and begin by talking about the space that we create for children to learn mindfulness. What's really important about the space that we create is that it feels safe, that the children feel comfortable, they feel happy, they feel really good about where they are. And the reason that we need to do this is because learning mindfulness is an intimate practice. The reason it's an intimate practice is this mindfulness brings us closer to who we are. It brings us closer to our environment. So we're becoming more intimate with reality. We're taking a step closer to what is real. And this is kind of ironic, right? Because I've been talking a lot about taking this step back, right? But really, the big cosmic joke is that we're essentially taking a step forward into what is real. Who are we really? What is our environment really? What's really happening in this moment? And when we learn how to do this, we need to be vulnerable. We need to be open. We need to be open to transformation and change and evolution. And we can't do that if we feel scared, if we feel unsafe, if we feel guarded. So as guides, we need to create this environment where everyone really feels safe. And if you've ever been to a meditation retreat, for example, a silent meditation retreat, there's a lot of reasons that the retreats are silent, but one of the reasons is because when we're doing all this meditating and we're learning meditation, we're vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, what other people say really affects us in a deep way, often even more deeply than if we aren't in this real mindfulness place. So on these retreats, one of the reasons they want everyone to be silent is they know that if people talk and say things to you, that it's really going to go in deep and it's going to be big. That's also why they don't want you to wear clothing that has words on it, because those words could affect you in a very deep way. So it's all about creating that comfortable space, and we need to be sensitive to what's going on with the children. There's different things that we can do as facilitators to create that space. Something really simple is to make sure that we call the students by their name so they really feel seen and they feel heard. Another way that we can create this comfortable space for our children to learn mindfulness is to consider all the situations that they're coming from before they come to your class. And this is even true if it's your own children. So let's think about that for a moment. They could be coming from a sleepover and they could be tired. They haven't had enough to eat. They could be coming from a dramatic situation. Maybe their parents just got in an argument, and they might be a little bit rattled by something like that, or maybe they got in an argument with one of their siblings. They could be hungry. Maybe they didn't get a chance to eat a snack before they came. So I suggest before the class begins to take a little time and consider these situations that the students could be coming from. And if it's your own child, it's more, you might know the situations that they're coming from, and then there might be some things that you don't know about. There might be some things going on with them, something that happened at school that you don't know. But you can take some time to consider the possibilities. And so if we do that, then we're a little bit more sensitive during the class about when things come up. We can think about, well, maybe this is going on, maybe that's going on. So it helps overall to create that really safe environment for the kids to learn. Another thing that we can do is to not push them too far, out of their comfort zone. Letting them decide their pace as they go into this practice. And then another way is, we're working with kids, is to make it fun. Fun translates into we feel good. The way that we begin our class can really play a role in how well we create this comfortable place. So I like to begin by introducing myself and asking all of the students to introduce themselves, sharing their name and their age. If we are teaching a class of over 15 kids, this might be too long, might not be possible. But if you're, for your certification class, it's nice if there's no more than 10 students. So definitely for your certification video, I would have the kids all introduce themselves and share their age if you think that's appropriate. And don't forget to introduce yourself as well. I have a video here of Alexa facilitating this part of the class, so enjoy.
Okay, would you like to start?
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Teresa, and I love to dance, and I play the piano.
All right, excellent. And how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really excited because we get to do all this meditating. Sounds fun.
Okay, great. It is fun.
Well, my name's Ayushma. I love music and I like working with lots of people.
Okay, and how are you feeling about being here
I'm
today?
excited
All right. And why are you excited?
because we get to do a lot of fun stuff and I'm with my friends.
Okay, great reasons.
After the introductions, I like to offer a icebreaker question. Sometimes we might call this a whip around question. And the icebreaker question helps the students get to know one another. It helps the students feel like they have a role in the class. So they're not just there to be a participant and learn mindfulness. That they're part of the community. I'm sharing about who I am as a person. And there's lots of different questions that you could ask, but it should be a question that it's something relatively personal that shares a little bit about who they are to the class. And I'll go over some examples later in the video. And don't forget to answer that question as well, because it's important that the students get to know you on that level. And after the icebreaker question, I like to check in and see how everyone's feeling, even if it's your own child. How are they feeling about being in your class today? How are they feeling about mindfulness? You could ask that specifically. And don't forget to describe how you're feeling too. You might want to begin as an example to show how you can really be open and honest and how you're feeling. And if you're doing your certification video and you've got the tape rolling, you might be a little nervous, and you can just share that with the students. Say, I'm feeling a little nervous today, and that helps them know that they can be vulnerable and they can be honest and share how they're feeling. After the icebreaker question, I like to move right into some kind of fun activity that has movement, just to get everybody energized and feeling good, feeling like they're gonna have fun in this class, feeling like it's okay to just laugh and goof around a little bit. I noticed that if I do this, it really sets a tone for the class that it helps create that comfortable space so they can be in a good place to learn something new, something that maybe in the past has intimidated them a little bit. Especially good for adults. If you're teaching adults, I think adults have more preconceived notions about how scary it is to learn mindfulness or meditation than children do, to be honest. But I like doing this with children as well. I like doing the Let Go Hokey Pokey. If you've read the book, it's explained in there, and I'll go into more detail later in this video. I'm going to show you a video of Alexa facilitating the Tree People Movement game. That's another great way to get people in your class excited and having fun and laughing. The Tree People Movement game is on page 137 in chapter 11 in this section called More Fun Before and After Meditations. And the Let Go Hokey Pokey is on page 95 in chapter 8, section, same section, More Fun Before and After Meditations.
Okay, do we have another kind of weather?
Windy.
Windy, all right. What's your tree gonna do in the wind? Okay, and another kind of weather.
Rainy.
Rainy, okay. Am I light rain? Am I a thunderstorm, a lightning storm?
Little sprinkles.
Little pitter-patter rain? Okay. Pitter-patter, 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 pitter-patter. Just dropping very gently. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. All right, good. All right, shake out your trees. How did that feel?
Nice.
Fun.
Fun. And which kind of weather did you like the best?
I like the rain.
Sarisa? And why did you like the rain?
The rain was kind of like beat, like pitter, patter, pitter.
So you heard the beat right against your branches?
You might be wondering, how do we transition into this quiet, mindful practice when we're up, jumping around, having fun, laughing? So here are a few ideas for transitions. One is simply changing your voice. So you're excited, you're leading the Let Go Hokey Pokey, everybody's singing and dancing, and then you slow your voice down, let the children know that you're transitioning into talking about mindfulness. Your voice might start to get a little softer and slower, having the kids sit down. So that just simply changing your voice can be just enough to refocus the class and set a new tone for the mindfulness practice. If you're working with some younger students, you could talk about melting, pretending that their ice cream melting into their mats. Maybe they're sitting on some yoga mats and just say, okay, now I want you to sit down on your yoga mat and I want you to imagine yourself as ice cream and you're just melting into the yoga mat. You feel your body just feel more still. That would be an example of another way to transition the kids. Another way is to have the kids pretend they're little mice and they're tiptoeing. Maybe you have them walk in a couple circles. Tiptoeing, quiet, quiet, quiet. We're so quiet. We're little mice. We're going to find our mat. Maybe quiet little mice being very still and quiet. And you might come up with something completely different, something even better, but it is good to consider, how are we going to transition into this quiet space so we can learn mindfulness. There's a point in your class that you're going to be teaching for your certification when you're talking about the definition of mindfulness. And so I want to review that a little bit. Mindfulness is definitely placing your attention on a point of focus, whether that's the sounds in the environment, the feelings in your body, if you're using your eyes, with your eyes open, looking at an object. For more advanced levels, that means noticing emotions that are coming up for you, and even more advanced are the thoughts, becoming aware of the thoughts that are going through your mind while you're probably paying attention to a certain point of focus. And what's really important about this aspect of mindfulness is what it is that we are purposefully paying attention to is usually something that's in the real world, real sounds that are happening in our environment. real physical feelings that we're feeling in our body. And then if our eyes are open, what we're seeing in the real world. If our eyes are closed, what are we seeing in the real world if our eyes are closed? Actually, there is something that we can see in the real world with our eyes closed, which can be a pretty neat meditation, and that is looking at the back of your eyelids. Because there's still some light in the room, you will notice some light coming through the back of your eyelids. I know it sounds really weird, but that's something that we can focus on in the real world with our eyes closed. So I think it's really important. I teach guided imagery as well, which is not focusing on things that are going on in the real world, right? We're closing our eyes and we're imagining a beach. We're closing our eyes and we're imagining ourselves walking down a path, for example, which is very different from mindfulness. And I just want to be very clear about that. From the approach that I take, there's a real distinction between those two practices. One we can really consider more guided imagery, and one is the mindfulness. So the mindfulness is the one that's focused on what's going on in this real world right now in this moment, like focusing on the moment. And guided imagery is more of the imagination, and it has its benefits as well. Guided imagery is awesome, and it's very healing, and there's so much that we can do with that. And so I do teach a course in that as well, and I love guided imagery. I love that practice. I think it's a great way to teach children to learn how to find peace for themselves and understand themselves, and lots of the benefits that mindfulness brings. But it's very different. So I just want to be very clear that the mindfulness is what's going on right now in the real world. The way that there's a little gray area in that idea are the thoughts. Because when we're practicing mindfulness and we become aware of our thoughts are usually not what's going on in the real world, right? Our thoughts are about something that happened in the past, or our thoughts about something that's going to happen in the future. And so that's not being right here, right now. However, we're having a thought about that, so that's kind of like happening right here, right now, because we're having a thought about it. So if we're in mindfulness, we're aware that that thought is there, but we're not zoning in on it. So that's the difference with the thoughts. The thoughts, we're not zoning in, we're just noticing it, we're letting it go. But the sounds in the environment, that's something more in mindfulness that we're zoning in on. We're purposefully paying attention to those sounds in the environment. So I hope that helps with your definition of what mindfulness is and what mindfulness isn't, so you can help guide the students that you're working with to come up with that definition as well. Mindfulness is also this taking a step back, right? I've talked about we are taking a step back from all these stories that are going on in our lives, and we're zoning in on these points of focus. Mindfulness is also this ebb and flow, right? We are focused, concentrated on a certain something, but inevitably our focus will shift away from it, and our practice is gently, without judgment, bringing our focus back. As a review of some benefits that we experience as a result of our mindfulness practice, I'll begin with the brainwave frequency. It is proven through science that when we practice mindfulness in this prefrontal cortex, the brainwave frequency gets to a normal rate. So if it's going too slowly, which causes symptoms of ADHD, the mindfulness practice will speed that up. If it's going too fast, then the mindfulness practice will slow it down, so it gets it into that balanced state. I might not have talked about this, but there are studies that show that a mindfulness practice actually grows brain tissue. So in different areas of the brain, they'll find over time a mindfulness practice will actually grow tissue in that area that leads to better neurology. And executive functioning, the mindfulness practice, helps us get to a place where we can be more mindful of our actions. That's a lot about what executive functioning is. It's this time where we can take a pause, this ability to take a pause before we do something quickly with our body or something with our voice, something that we might say, this more being reactive. So the mindfulness practice can help us be more, to respond more mindfully rather than react without thought. And the executive functioning also helps us with organization. You might notice after your own practice or teaching someone else over time, if they've been practicing mindfulness, that they're just naturally becoming a little bit more organized in their life. They're organizing their paperwork, their classwork, their papers from school a little bit more. Their bedroom might become a little bit more organized. And mindfulness practice also builds our empathetic thinking. So our thoughts about others in our life, in addition to us becoming more non-judgmental about ourselves, right? And those thoughts that come through, we're non-judgmentally just allowing those thoughts to come in and leave. The same with the people in our life. We're less judgmental about what they might be doing and more accepting. Those are definitely some very strong benefits that anyone will experience as a result of their mindfulness practice. I want to share with you a study. This study is called a pilot randomized trial teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction to traumatized youth in foster care. So there are 21 children who are in foster care that participated in this study. Their ages are 14 to 21, and most of the participants in this study are Black. So what they did is they met once a week for 2 hours for 8 weeks. And they met 1 hour per week learning mindfulness. So they spent an hour a week learning mindfulness. And then they spent another hour on yoga, learning yoga. And then they also had a piece with crafts and speakers. So I think what they did is they did all this back to back. They had an hour of mindfulness, and then after mindfulness they did an hour of yoga, and then they had kind of like a dinner where they had a chance to do some crafts and listen to some speakers that came in. So they had that social aspect. The results of this study were 25% reduction in externalizing problems. So what that means is being aggressive, outwardly aggressive would be an example of a way that we would externalize a problem. Being disobedient would be another example. Cheating, lying, things of that nature, stealing, property destruction. So that's how they defined externalizing problems. I'm going to lead you through a mindfulness meditation. This one is focused on breath awareness. So go ahead and find a position that works well for you. Since you're breathing, you may want to sit up to become mindful of the breath. However, I do know people lying down do well with this practice as well. So it's up to you. You can fool around with it and see what works best for you, or maybe you've been practicing breath awareness for years and you know exactly what to do. So just go ahead and find that comfortable spot. All right, your eyes are closed. Place your attention on your breath. Feel the natural flow of your breath in and out. You don't need to do anything to your breath. You don't need to make it longer or shorter. Just let your breath be natural. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. It might be in your abdomen. Your breath might be in your chest or throat. You can also notice your breath in your nostrils. See if you can feel the sensations of your breath. Does your breath tickle the inside of your nose? Is the temperature of your breath coming into your nose different than the temperature going out of your nose? Notice the sound your breath makes. Notice your chest rising and falling with each breath. Feel which muscles in your body are used to help you breathe. As you are noticing the muscles in your body, you might notice your mind starting to wander. You might start thinking about other things. If this happens, it is not a problem. Be kind to your wandering mind. It's very natural. Just simply notice that your mind has wandered. You can label it by saying, thinking, I'm thinking, or wandering, my mind is wandering. And then gently redirect your attention back to your breathing. I'll let you do this on your own for a moment, more noticing your breath in, breathing out. From time to time, you get lost in thought, and just return your focus to your breath without judgment. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude this mindfulness meditation. And go ahead and open your eyes. Stretch out your arms if you'd like, taking a deep breath. What I've found with my own mindfulness practice is in the beginning, years ago when I started, it helped me to use a few points of focus. For example, with this meditation is leading you to notice the temperature of the air coming in and out of your nostrils. It's leading you to notice your chest rising and falling. It's leading you to notice the sounds that your breath makes. And in the beginning, with the children, I think it does help them to, in the same meditation, to notice these different aspects of the breath. But what I find to be the goal eventually is to get to just one, to get to just, for example, noticing the sound that the breath makes. And to do that, it takes practice and it takes time, and we might focus on 3 aspects of the breath for the first year or 2, and then the next year we might focus on 2 aspects of the breath. And then, after a few more years into it, then we really just get down to the one aspect. I find that to be the most beneficial. It's stilling myself more and more and more gradually over time. But in the beginning, when we're out of practice, it's really difficult to jump right in there and just focus on that one aspect of the breath. I think it's nice to have a few different to rotate through within a meditation. So I tell you that for your own practice, and also when you're guiding the students, that we want to know where eventually they're going to end up. It might take them years, but it helps us as their mindfulness instructors to just gently show them where they are headed. But like I said in the beginning, it's good to have a few different aspects to focus on. This is currently one of my favorite mindfulness studies. This is called Bullying, Victimization, and Depression in Chinese Children, a moderated meditation model of resilience and mindfulness. There were 448 Chinese children that participated in this study, ages 9 to 13 years old. The study is a little bit different than the other studies that I've shared because they don't actually teach mindfulness in this study, but what comes out of this study is brilliant. Instead of teaching mindfulness, what they do is they are interviewing students to understand how naturally mindful they already are. So what they did, children were tested for their present level of mindfulness, resilience, depression, and level of being victim of bullying. So those are 4 factors that they gathered data on for each of the participants. They gathered data by having the children answer questions that would lead the researchers to understand their level of mindfulness, resilience, depression, and victim of being bullied. And so I'll break those down for you. The researchers define resilience as a person's ability to cope with stress. What is important about depression in this study is that depression leads to substance abuse and suicidal thoughts, which is what the researchers brought in from previous research. And they found that bullying was directly correlated with depression. So that's one of the results of the studies. And mindfulness, as defined by these researchers, is being aware of ongoing physical, cognitive, and psychological experience in a non-judgmental, accepting, and self-empathetic way. So a lot of what we've been talking about, right? Being aware of ongoing physical would be, the body sensations, what's going on in our body. The awareness of cognitive would be being aware of our own stream of consciousness, essentially. And the psychological experience, I'm guessing, would be part of that stream of consciousness, but also our emotions and how we are responding and to things going on around us. Being mindful of what happens to us when these things are going on in our outer environment. And bullying is defined as being the victim of a repeated. So what they found after they interviewed 448 children is they found that the students who were considered to have the trait of mindfulness, to be physically and cognitively and psychologically aware of themselves, that these students were less likely to become depressed as a result of bullying. So this is huge. I mean, this is something to consider in so much of what is happening in schools and what's happening in families, as far as if you're having children that are coming home from school and feeling bullied and such, is knowing that being mindful actually helps us be resilient to these things going on in our world. So if we teach mindfulness and we're helping students become more mindful and to get, I love this term, having the mindfulness trait, having the trait of mindfulness, then they're going to be in a better spot. So this can be one of our goals as a mindfulness instructor for children, is to help them acquire this mindfulness trait. I'm going to lead you through another mindfulness meditation. This one is about sounds, so leading you to be focused on the sounds in your environment. So again, just go ahead and get comfortable. Find the meditation posture that works best for you. And go ahead and close your eyes. Settle into a comfortable position and become aware of your breath flowing in and out. When you are ready, shift your awareness to the sounds that are present in this moment. Do this without searching for sounds. Let them come to you and fill your ears while listening to sounds near and far away. Notice if the sounds make you think of something like a memory. If this happens, let these thoughts pass away. Again, remember to notice the sounds near and far away. While you do this, notice if you find yourself trying to figure out what the sounds are, instead of focusing on hearing the sounds just as they are. We're just listening, we're not trying to figure out what the sounds are, just listening to the sounds as they are. Be aware that the sounds arise and fade away. And notice if there are any spaces between the sounds. When your mind wanders, gently return your attention to the flow of the sounds occurring in the present moment. When you are finished, shift your attention back to your breathing and gradually open your eyes. I'm going to share some of the questions that I have in this document for the after meditation questions that can help facilitate a discussion with your students. The first one is, what sounds did you hear inside the building? Number 2, what sounds did you hear coming from outside the building? Number 3, did you get caught up in trying to figure out what a sound was instead of simply listening to the sound? Number 4, what did you do when you didn't hear any sounds? Number 5, does your mind and body feel more relaxed after the meditation compared to before. This is the point in the video when I will go over all of the items that you need for your certification. I often refer to them as your certification materials. The first thing you need to do is to complete this training, which you are almost completely through. So that means viewing all 3 of these videos, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. You will also need to complete what is called the Mindfulness Response Template, and I'll go over that in detail. You will need to write an essay, and I'll go over that as well. And you will need to teach your own class on mindfulness to a group of children, and I'll go over the guidelines for teaching that class. And then lastly, there is a $75 fee for the certification. So those are the items that you'll need, and I'll break each of those down for you. Here is the mindfulness response template. You will use this template to record your experience with your 7-day-long mindfulness practice that you need to do for your certification. You will be practicing mindfulness for 60 minutes every day for 7 days. Here is the log that you'll fill out that has the date and the time for each day of meditating. Your first day, you'll be focusing on body sensations, the second day on breathing, the third on sight, the fourth day on sound, the fifth day is your free choice, a free choice day, the sixth day you'll practice loving kindness, and then the seventh day you have another free choice day, meaning you can choose any of the body sensations, breathing, sight, sound, or loving kindness. The first page of this template explains in a little bit more detail what you'll be focusing on for those different days. I offer some tips to overcome some of the challenges that you might be faced with during that week of meditating. I find that if I limit sugar and limit grains, carbs in general, that helps me with my meditation practice. It helps me feel more settled, more focused. That would be true also for caffeine. Vegetables and proteins are very grounding, so eating those types of foods can help us feel more settled in our meditation. If you feel like you want to stop your meditation, you've sat down for 15 minutes and you're just getting that feeling of like, I just can't do this right now. I've got a million things to do. I can't take this hour right now and meditate, or maybe there's some other reason that you feel like you want to get off the cushion, is how a lot of us term that in the mindfulness world. My suggestion there is to notice those feelings and just say to yourself, I'm noticing a strong desire to get off this cushion, and I'm just going to notice that feeling, and when it goes, it goes, and leave it at that. Instead of buying into the feeling and physically getting off the cushion, instead we take that step back and notice that feeling going on. Another suggestion is to get plenty of rest during that week to help us not fall asleep during our mindfulness practice. Being well rested. And my last tip to you is to announce to the people in your life that you're doing this. Saying, I'm going to be meditating for 60 minutes every day for 7 days. And please support me in any way that you can, even if that's just giving me a call, sending me a text saying, hey, how's your mindfulness practice going this week? You might want to post on Facebook, making an announcement, look, this is what I'm doing, and your Facebook community could be your accountability, and maybe you could give them a little bit of a report every day and how you're doing, and you'd be surprised how supportive people will be. And here are the questions that you'll be answering after each day of practice. So there are a few questions that you answer for each day, and then there are a few questions that you answer just in general about the whole week. They don't need to be long, just a couple sentences for each answer. And please do limit it to just a couple sentences. It really does not need to be long. I want to go over your class that you need to teach for your certification, as well as a video that you take of that class for your certification. For the class should have at least 3 children. At least one of those children needs to be a child that's not your child. But if you want to have some of your own children in the class, that's completely fine. There needs to be at least 3 students, but please no more than 10 students. And that's just to help you. It's your certification video. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed with a large group of kids. If you need an exception to that, just go ahead and email me and we can discuss that. You will need to follow the sample meditation time outline, and I'm going to go over that in detail next, so you'll know what you need to do. But you will not be able to get certified unless you teach it in this way. And the reason is I want you to be successful, meaning I want you to get certified. And so the meditation time outline hits all the points that you need to hit in order to get certified. So that's why it's really important that you do follow that. After you're certified, or even before you're certified, I mean, I don't mind if you teach mindfulness classes in a completely different way. It's totally fine. But for the certification, the items in that outline are what I want you to be able to do, or is the content of this course that I want you to be able to apply to get that certification. Because that's why I'm certifying you. I'm certifying you that you know the content of the course, and I'm certifying that you know how to apply that content of this course. So those steps in that outline show me that you can do that you're accomplished. And I've mentioned a few times already, but you do need to use a meditation that is approved. If you want to use a different meditation, that's fine. Just go ahead and email it to me ahead of time so I can just let you know that that one's going to be okay. I'm going to go over the 10 steps that you need to follow when you teach your mindfulness class for certification. These steps are listed in the book Sensational Meditation for Children on page 63, which is in chapter 5, Tips for Success. It's about halfway through the chapter. So the first step is checking in. This is a time to check in with everybody and see how everybody's doing. It's a time for the students to get to know one another if they don't already know each other. And if they already know each other, it's a time to get to know each other just maybe a little bit better. So the first thing I like to do is have the students share their name and possibly their age. And then an icebreaker question is always great. Sometimes we call this a whip around question. Some examples might be, what is your favorite food? Could be that simple. Or what is your favorite show on Netflix right now? Or one word. Can you share one word to describe how your day is going? I also like to use this time to check in with their feelings. How are they feeling about being in your class? How are they feeling about mindfulness? So this could be a second question. You could ask very simply, so how are you feeling about learning mindfulness today? Something of that nature, just to kind of get a gauge on how everybody's doing. It'll help you as a guide to get them extra motivated, or help them settle down, or whatever it is that you need to do to help them. Step number 2 is facilitating a fun activity. It's my personal philosophy to get the kids laughing and smiling within the first 15 minutes of class. This really helps if some of the students coming are a little bit apprehensive about you, about the class, about mindfulness. And so if we can get them laughing and doing something fun right off the bat, then that sets them at ease, and I think, oh well, this is fun. So some ideas are, I love to do what I call the let go hokey pokey. So we are standing up in a circle, and we are singing a song similar to the hokey pokey song. If you're from the U.S., you probably know that, but some of you from other countries might not be familiar with it. Before we begin, I ask all the students to think of something that they don't really want to think about right now, something they just want to let go of, something that's been on their mind that they just want to set aside for a little bit during this class. And then we go around the circle, and one at a time, we imagine that thing, that thought, is in our grip here, in our hands, and we sing the song. So it might be homework. Say someone's thinking a lot about homework, and so they tell us, okay, it's homework that I want to let go of. And then all of us sing together, and all of us do the hand motions together. We put our homework in, we take our homework out, we put our homework in, and we shake it all about. We do the hokey pokey, and we turn ourselves around, and that's what it's all about. So, I'm not the best singer, but it doesn't matter. And then we go to the next person, and they say, what it is that they want to let go of, and then we sing the round for them. When I do it with my students, if a kid is just, they're kind of stuck and they're not really sure what to put in, we just automatically say, I don't know. It's like, okay, you don't know, we're putting your I don't knows in. I got that from an old show on Nickelodeon from like 30 years ago. Anytime anyone on the show said, I don't know, a big green slime, this bucket of green slime was poured over them. So it's like, okay, so I don't know. And so we put our I don't knows in, we take our I don't knows out, and we do the whole song. So the reason I like to do that is I like to keep the momentum, instead of someone just stopping the momentum and kind of thinking, even though I've given them think time beforehand, they still might be stuck. And so what it does, it loosens the energy up, gets us having fun, moving around, smiling, laughing, and it is a lesson in mindfulness, because mindfulness is about letting go of those thoughts. So it really, it's for a lot of different purposes. But you don't have to do the let go hokey pokey. You might want to do something different. We did go over the tree people movement game. That's a great one, and it gets us moving around, gets us laughing, and it's fun. There's also putting thoughts in a basket. I've had some of my adult students hand out little pieces of paper at the beginning of the class at this point, and everybody writes down something that they kind of want to just let go of, and then they crumble it up and throw it in the basket. So that could be another kind of little fun activity in the beginning. And then one more that I can suggest is everybody sitting down in a circle and extending their feet in front of them and pretending that there's a pool of water in the middle of the circle, and that they're kind of just letting go of their thoughts in the pool of water, kicking their thoughts around a little bit in the water gently. But it's fun, and it gets people smiling. The third step is talking about the word mindfulness and teaching the students what mindfulness is and guiding them to come up with their own definition of what mindfulness is. So the way I do this is I don't even talk about what mindfulness is in the beginning. Instead, I ask them to share what they know about mindfulness. So again, we're in a circle, and the students are taking turns one at a time, sharing what they know about mindfulness. And some of them might not know anything, and that's fine. They'll just say, well, I'm not really sure, but usually they have some sense. If they've gotten to your class, they have some sense of what mindfulness is. And then after everyone has shared, then I share my definition of what mindfulness is. And the idea is, over time, for you as the facilitator to support the students to come up with their own definition. And it might evolve over time. It might have one way of looking at it in the beginning, and then after about a month of practice, their definition might be a little bit different. So I like to have that check-in with them, maybe not every single class, but a lot of classes, so they can share their definition, and they can see how their own definition is evolving, and you can see that as well. The fourth step is called the pre-meditation. So what I mean by this is it's like a little mini meditation that we do before we do the full meditation. And the reason I like to do a mini meditation is so for those kids that haven't done this type of mindfulness before, it gives them a chance to just kind of get a taste of it. So they are set at ease, they have a little bit of background before they go into the main meditation. So if you are focusing on sounds in your mindfulness class, then this pre-meditation should probably be just kind of a taste, maybe a minute, 60 seconds of closing their eyes and listening to sounds, maybe ringing the singing bowl or something like that. Or if you are focusing on physical sensations, then this would be just about 30 seconds, a minute of the students closing their eyes and getting an idea of what it's like to feel some of these physical sensations. And the nice thing about the pre-meditation is that when it's they have a chance to ask questions before they go into the main meditation about this practice. So that's one reason it's great, and another reason is if they have any fears or doubts about the practice, then hopefully this just little practice will relieve those doubts for them. A pre-meditation activity that you could do if your class is centered on sounds could be to bring in some different objects that make sounds and have the child close their eyes and make the sound, something unusual that the child might not be completely sure what it is. And our next step is number 5, and that's special topic. So this is when you will speak explicitly about whatever it is that you are teaching in that particular mindfulness class. This is based on your teaching objective. So for example, if the teaching objective that you chose was being mindful of the sounds in your environment, this is when you would speak really explicitly about that and talk directly to what that means. What does it mean to be mindful of the sounds in our environment? And I urge you to be more of a facilitator versus an instructor. What that means is we are not just up there talking and explaining and giving examples and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm instructing right now. We want to kind of step away from that, become more of a facilitator, which means we are involving the students more, we are engaging them, and a great way to do this is to hold discussions. I like to kind of gauge how much time I'm speaking compared to how much time the students are speaking collectively. So it's nice to have that be about a 50-50 ratio. So I'm talking about half the time, and then about half the time they are contributing. If they're contributing even more than half the time, that's great, because they really learn from each other, and I'm learning from them. We're all learning from one another. So if you, again, going back to the teaching objective of being mindful of the sounds in your environment, to really dig into that, I would probably hold a discussion with the kids and ask them, what do you think when we go into our mindfulness practice in a few minutes here, what are some of the sounds that you think that we are going to become mindful of? So it gives them some time to really think about what is going on in our environment. What do you think that we are going to become more in tune with when we go into our meditation? If you are focusing your class on physical sensations, what's going on in our body? What are we becoming more mindful of in our body? Then you might ask them in a circle, one at a time, to answer, what do you think when we go ahead and close our eyes and become more mindful? What do you think some of the physical sensations are in our bodies that we might start noticing? And it's good that you've already done that pre-meditation, because they've already kind of got a taste for it. They've already felt it a little bit, so they'll be better at answering that question. This is also a time that you might do some kind of demonstration. So if you're doing the Me and My Zen meditation, this might be the time that you would demonstrate putting that little stuffed animal on their bellies and so forth. And another suggestion for the special topic step is to keep it short. We don't want to spend a lot of time intellectualizing, going into your special topic. There's actually time at the end in another step to revisit it, and you could talk a little bit more about it. It's just kind of, discussion, and then let's get into the practice. Step 6 is the time that we talk about your posture. How is our body going to be positioned during their meditation, during their mindfulness practice? So there's a couple different ways that you could approach this. One is having the students choose what they want to do with their body, what position they want to put their body into. So if I go this route, I like to ask the students at this point to give me ideas of different ways that they can position their body. And then I like to give the kids some time to practice sitting in those different positions. So one child might raise their hand and say, well, we could sit cross-legged. I said, okay, let's all try that. And let's all get into a cross-legged, crisscross applesauce position. And we might do that for about 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever feels good. And then someone else will raise their hand and offer, well, we could lie down during our mindfulness practice. And so I said, okay, let's do that. And let's all practice lying down for another 15 seconds or so. So that's one way to do it. And that really gives them an opportunity to become, really to buy into their practice and to own it because they're making decisions about it. I really like to do that whenever possible. But we might want to teach the students to sit in a certain way, and that's fine too. So this might be when we talk about the wolf in the woods and their posture and how they're really sitting up straight and they're very alert, and we would all practice that. So it's up to you. You might want to fool around with it different ways and see what you think works best. And it also might depend on the particular meditation. Obviously, if you're doing the Me and My Zen meditation, you are going to be lying down. So at this point, you might explain that. Some students have a hard time keeping their eyes closed, especially the younger ones. So I do offer to them, you can actually put your hands right over your eyes if you'd like to, and some like to do that. If you are doing some lying down meditation, you might have eye pillows, where they can put over their eyes. So those are all options, just to help them keep their eyes closed. All right, we are now on the 7th step, which is facilitating the meditation. And there are only certain meditations that you can use for the certification, which I mentioned before. The Me and My Zen meditation is completely acceptable. The How Do I Feel in My Socks meditation, which we did earlier. The focusing on senses in the body and being aware of your body sensations. Focusing on sounds in the environment might be a different meditation. Sitting with your eyes open, observing a natural object, for example, plant, might be a different option. And I do have that list of approved meditations. So when you lead the students through the meditation, there are a couple of things as a guide to be aware of. One is your pace. How fast are you speaking? With children, you don't actually want to go too slow. They process and meditate at pretty quick speed, I've learned over the years. So you don't want to go too slow, but you don't want to go too fast either. You don't want to just kind of rush through the meditation. So that's something to practice, is getting your pace down. And like I've said before, reading right from a script is completely acceptable, in fact is encouraged. Our 8th step is the time that the students share about their experience. So they've done their mindfulness, they're finished, and now they're going to take turns sharing about their experience, sharing about what was tricky, what was a struggle, what was a little bit of a challenge, and sharing what was a success. This is, again, another time for discussion, and there are, after meditation questions, at the end of every meditation in that document that I shared about the approved meditations, and also in the book. So this is a good time to ask some of those questions to get them sharing about what it was like for them participating in that mindfulness practice. And it's such a magical time in your class because the students can learn from one another. They can hear another student share about their experience and really have some light bulbs going off. Sometimes the students are able to teach each other better than I'm even able to teach them. So this is a really important part of the class. And as a facilitator, we need to be careful how we respond to what the students share. We don't want to interrupt them. We don't want to make a lot of interpretations about their experience because it's theirs. We want them to own it. So it's more of a kind of a reflective listening time. We're just listening, and if we respond, it might be more of saying back to them what they've shared to you so they know that they've been heard. Not required, you don't have to do that, but if it feels comfortable to do that, but that's better than you sharing a lot of opinions about their practice. And we also want to be careful about our reaction as far as how excited we get about what they've shared. This is something that I just personally have had to take a look at over the years. I don't want to get really excited about the way someone shared and, oh yeah, that's amazing, that's great, and then I forget to get excited about the next child. I don't want them to feel bad because they really do. They notice these things, and they want to please the guide, whoever's guiding them. And so I like to offer more of a neutral response. Just say thank you. It's more of like a gratitude. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. Our 9th step is what I call, what did we do that for? And this is a time to ask the students and guide them to think of a time in their life when they could use this meditation to their benefit. When in your life might you use this meditation to help you through something? And it's my belief that if we guide the children to think of this specific time when they could use the meditation, then they're more likely in that moment, in that time, when that comes up, to use the meditation. And so I like to get pretty specific as you can to feel comfortable with the other students. So a student might share, well, I can use it next time I'm feeling really overly anxious. And so in that moment, if it feels comfortable, I might ask them, well, when might that be? When might you feel overly anxious? And so the student might say, well, when I'm going in the doctor's office, when I'm in the doctor's office waiting room, I get anxious. So I said, okay, all right. And so then they can connect that time, that challenge with this meditation would really help me. I could do that in this moment. And there's certain mindfulness meditations that they certainly could do in that moment. If you're focusing on the sounds in the environment, they can easily, in the doctor's office, just go ahead and close their eyes and take a breath and just notice all the sounds going on in that office. And if they feel uncomfortable closing their eyes, they could even do it with their eyes open. It's a little more challenging, but they could keep their eyes open and just tune in to all the different sounds. And that helps them take a step back, right, from the story of going to the doctor and getting the shot and having this happen and that happen. Instead, they take a step back and they're just in that moment right now, and they're hearing the little kid next to them read a book, or they're hearing the receptionist answer the phone. You're tuning in to those sounds, and that's mindfulness. And that's a perfect time and place to practice mindfulness. And then this is also a time for you to go back to that special topic, and if there's anything else that you want to add to your teaching about what it is that you're guiding them to do, because they've already experienced the practice. You've led them through the meditation. So this is a perfect time to go into what you're teaching more deeply, as opposed to before, because before they don't have as much of a frame of reference. They haven't actually done the practice yet. So this might be not a good time to just go into more depth, more time to just keep it simple. But now that they've practiced it and they've gone through the meditation, this is a time to go more deeply into what it is that you want to have them understand about it, because now they have this frame of reference. They remember in their meditation the sounds and what it felt like to tune into those sounds. This brings us to our final step, the 10th step, which is the art project. In addition to sharing their experience with the other members of their class, I also like to create an opportunity for students to create something that represents their experience. So an art project, some type of art project that aligns with their experience learning mindfulness. Let's say, for example, your class is focused on feeling physical sensations in the body. So for your art project, you might have them draw an outline of a body. They each have their individual paper with an outline of their body, and then they might color in and label different parts of the body that they became in tune with during the mindfulness practice. Or you could have one large piece of butcher paper that with one outline of a body, maybe somebody lies down and you trace around to create that body, and then they could collaboratively work on it, and they could draw and color different areas of the body and label, this is where I felt an itch, this is where I felt like I was fidgeting a lot, like my foot was fidgeting a lot, and I might color in the foot and write that in there. So that would be an example for physical sensations in the body. Sounds, that's really easy. You could simply give them a piece of paper and ask them to create a drawing to represent some of the sounds that they heard during their meditation. So if there was a helicopter going through the sky outside, they might draw the helicopter. And again, the reason that the art project is so important is it allows them to process their experience longer and help them remember, how does this practice work? After they've drawn this picture of these items that made noises that they heard during their practice, then they've really gotten it. They really have made this connection. I'm sitting still and I'm hearing, I'm getting in tune, I'm becoming aware of these sounds. They might even draw a picture of a self-portrait of themselves sitting in meditation, and then the actual items that they hear might be all around them in the picture. And so it kind of just brings it all together. It reinforces what you've taught them and what they've experienced in their meditation. And again, sharing, if they have time at the end, each child can share that piece of artwork with the rest of their class. Again, this is an opportunity for the students to learn from each other. The artwork can also offer as a reminder of how to do the meditation. So if they go ahead and hang that picture that they've drawn up on their wall at home, then that might be enough for them to remember how to do that particular meditation. So like the saying says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It really is in this situation. The videoing of the class, this has gotten easier over the years now that we have smartphones with these awesome cameras, so this should be no problem. But just a few points about the camera work. Whoever's holding the smartphone, make sure that they're not like moving around a lot. All right, here's my phone. You want to keep it still. This is because I get sick and nauseous. This has happened. Sometimes I'm woo, and I'm just like, ugh, ready to hurl. So if you could just have whoever's holding it, just keep it steady. It's okay if they pan a little bit, but if they can pan slowly. And it is nice to pan, because then I can see some different views and angles of the room. Not necessary, but that is totally fine. The camera should be relatively close to you as you're teaching, maybe no more than 8 feet away. And this is because of the audio. If it's too far away, I can't hear what you're saying and what the students are saying. And the audio is actually the most important part of your video. That offers the most information for me when I'm viewing it, is what everybody is saying. So the audio really does need to be good so I can hear it. If you've got some visual issues, some blurry, I can get by with that. That'll be okay, but the audio does need to be really good. Okay, this is really important for your video. No clipping of the video, please. Just straight run from beginning to end. If something happens during the class, I'd rather see how you handle whatever that is. If the dog gets loose and runs through the class, I would like to see that. How do you guide the students back into what you're teaching, despite the fact that this big old dog ran through. So don't clip that part out. Don't have your teenage son go ahead and chop everything and put transitions in. And no, we don't need any of that. Just raw video from start to finish. The last part of the outline is the art project. You don't have to video the whole entire art project. I know that can go on and on for 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, the kids working on the art project. I don't need to see all of that, but I would like to see some of it. So maybe you can video the first 5 minutes, for example, of the kids working on the art project, and then at the end maybe you could video some of the finished product that the kids created. As far as sharing the video, what most people do is they upload it to YouTube and they make it an unlisted video, which means that anybody with that link can view the video. That's what I prefer. It seems to be the easiest. Sometimes people make it private, which does work sometimes, but sometimes there's an issue with the email address. And so if you don't mind, I would prefer if you make it unlisted and just share the link with me. That seems to be the easiest. If you want to share the video in some other way, that's fine. Just let me know. In addition to the mindfulness response template and the video, you also need to submit an essay. The essay should be about 500 words, which isn't that long. It's a response to something that you read in the book, Sensational Meditation for Children. The essay doesn't have to be technical. Don't worry about grammar and things like that. Just almost as if it was just a journal entry, something that moved you in some way in the book. You can just go ahead and write about that. All your materials for certification need to come to me in one email. If you can, please don't email me the essay in one email when you get that done, and then email me the response template in another email when you get that done, and then another email has the link to the video. Something's gonna get lost. I'm not super organized, I guess, when it comes to email. So if you could, please just have one email that has everything attached to it and everything in it in one email. That would be so great. And so in that email, you would let me know the link to your video. You'd let me know how you paid for your certification. The mindfulness certification is $75. It does take me time to go through all the materials, so you're paying for my time to review everything. And then attached to that email would be the mindfulness template, and also attached to that email would be your certification essay. Listed on the handouts page is a certification checklist. This is really helpful for you to go through and make sure that you have everything that you need for the certification, because I know it's a lot. So this one document should list everything. So you can go through there and check off, yes, I did that, yes, I did that, boom, boom, boom. You probably want to go ahead and read through the checklist before you start working on your class and your video, so you make sure ahead of time that you have everything. So I have a section on materials. This is all of the things that you'll need for your materials. I have a section on the video, which I went over how to do that video. And then I have a section on the lesson. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that part because I haven't so much today in this video. So for the mindfulness certification, you need to use one of the approved meditations. So we did go over that. The second one here, my class has a theme topic. If teaching mindfulness, I chose a theme such as sounds, body sensations, or other theme related to mindfulness. So that is when you would refer to the teaching objectives and choose one of those teaching objectives to build your class around. Here's another point. My class is 100% dedicated to the guidelines of the certification. I'm not trying to fit my meditation class into an existing class such as a yoga class. I know some of you already have classes that you're teaching, and it's a little bit tricky to make sure you hit all of these 10 steps in your existing class because your existing class is already set up in a certain way. So sometimes it's hard to shift everything and do it this way for the certification. So I just want to kind of point that out. I know in the past this has been an issue for a few students that I've had. So just be careful if you're in that situation. My suggestion is to not teach it in your regular class, but instead to create some completely different class, even if it's just in your living room with a few students, and that might just open up your lesson plan quite a bit. The last point here is I have at least 45 minutes of class time available to dedicate to my class to the 10 steps in the sample class outline. So if you do the outline correctly, it should take about 45 minutes. Sometimes it'll take about 30 minutes, but that's usually because they haven't showed me all the video of the art project. So it does take time to get through all those steps if you do it correctly. So making sure you have that time allotted.